Hello, and welcome to another episode on the Unbalanced Pedestal podcast. My name is Tina Marie, and I am joined by these amazing gentlemen that I had the pleasure to collaborate with so many times on their platform. And they came on here to bless me with their knowledge, their expertise, and just overall life experiences. I would like to introduce you to Dwayne and Stephen. Now, thank you so much for coming on here. I know that I reached out to you not too long ago because I know that you guys are fathers in this day and age, and I wanted to get your perspective on what it is to be a father and how you grew up from your era to how you're raising your sons and your daughters in this day and age, and how that translates into what you know and what can you say or do to help them navigate in life. And because this podcast is all about generational curses, what we can do as parents. I'm a mother of two. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I have a 20-year-old son, and so I feel that it's vital to hear from a male's perspective of what that's like in this day and age, and what advice, what you do in general, just to uh, forewarn your children, if you will. So if whoever wants to go first, Stephen or Dwayne. This podcast is sponsored by How to Live Boundlessly When Limited Beliefs No Longer Serve You. This book was created based on a collection of experiences that will help you navigate and understand how to get your time back, remove your limiting beliefs, and take back your power. Now, if this sounds intriguing and you want to learn how to gain your self confidence, and because you think it's not possible, go ahead, click the link in the description box where you can join the waiting list, where you get the drop release and exclusive goodies that come along with it. Now, let's get back into the episode.
Okay. Well, I'll hop in first. Tina, thank you again for having us. We truly appreciate you. As you said, I mean, shoot, we family now, so it's just a beautiful thing to be able to be on your platform. And again, like we told you before, we're super proud of you, and this is a super dope platform. But yes, so I'm Steve Lewis. That's my government name that my mama gave me. I go by the name of POP though on social media and all social media platforms, and the acronym stands for Passionately on Purpose. And yes, I am a content creator. I'm a father, husband, all of the above. And and so for me, fatherhood has one been a mirror to me, because I definitely see myself reflected in many different characteristics of myself reflected in my children. Some I like, and some are a bit challenging, right? But what fatherhood is most definitely an opportunity and a privilege to be able to sow a seed into the next generation that will ultimately have influence and impact in a positive way. So I'm grateful for the privilege and opportunity to be a father, and also I'm also thankful to have the beautiful struggle, as I like to say, or the challenge of having to become the type of man that could pass on that type of wealth, if you will.
All right, cool. So it's on me. Um, I'm Dwayne from East Point, One Purpose Mom on all social media platforms. And for me, fatherhood is really like sacrificing yourself. I think just everything I've gone through in life, when I look back at it, even the struggles that I have, even now, it's for me to be able to give wisdom and guidance to my kids. And even through my mistakes, I find now I'm more aware to share those mistakes with them so they understand that, it ain't no perfect man out there, and it's okay for your dad to make mistakes. I think we live in a culture, man, where we want to paint this perfect picture sometimes just as individuals, and we don't allow kids to see the flaws. And so when you don't allow them to see the flaws, you're not really allowing them to flow into who they need to be just in life. And so really they get a lopsided view of themselves because you're showing them something, you know, that's lopsided. And so my desire as a dad, man, is to um, create the best path that I can, just as a man, as a positive influence, to show them, to get them closest to the light as possible, and to give them a path that they can feel free to flow in without um, struggles that I went through or hardships that I went through, being able to try to set them a path that's clear so they don't have to go down those pitfalls or those roads.
I love that. There's one thing that you said, Dwayne, that you show your kids your flaws. Now, I don't know about your household or Steven's growing up, but my household and my family's from the Caribbean. Most of them are from the Caribbean, and there's no such thing as showing flaws. Whether you're male or
Mhm.
female, it's we don't talk about anything in the household. You cannot question your parents at all, and you know when someone sees your flaws, um, well, for me, growing up, that was like it's like a taboo. It's like asking how much your parents how much money you make, right? You get
Yeah,
slapped across the
yeah,
head. And when your kids see that you're a human being just like them, you know for myself, when my kids always saw me as like this superwoman, right? That's all they saw. It was go, 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 and do what I need to do, and having this perfect, persona, towards everyone. And that's all they see. And so they amount to, this is how I should live my life.
yeah,
I have to literally be this perfect person in order to please mom, please dad, and anything that goes wrong in my life, that it's not good enough. And I love, again, going back to what you said, that you showing the flaws, that it's okay to make mistakes and to learn from them, which is something that I feel that a lot of, for my generation, growing up, that saying that failure is okay. We don't
mhm,
tell our kids failure is okay. We put that pressure on them that you got to get straight A's, you got to be perfect, you got to do the best, you got to be the winner of every gold medal, which is good, and depending on what aspects, if you're doing Olympics or whatever, that's a whole different arena,
yeah, yeah,
but in just general life, and not having that stress and anxiety on children, I think
yeah,
is so vital and important, because a lot of children, and again, going back to like mental health and illness, that wasn't even talked about growing up. You can't,
Yeah.
people label you as crazy because you're having a stressful bad day and you can't talk about your anxiety or your depression. You be kicked into the crazy house, or
yeah,
in New York we call it the G building at Kings County Hospital.
yeah,
You get labeled a name, but you're just going through some things, and that person that may not have they may not know how to handle it, because one, no one's giving them guidance, no one's giving them grace, and then not giving grace towards himself. And
yeah,
so, for my children, when I went through, and I talk about this a lot, when I went through my own challenges back in 2018, and I was having my breakdown and going through depression and all of those things, and my children were a witness to it. So this is where I started opening up and telling them what was going on at my job and how they were treating me. And, it's, stemmed from racism and all these things like that, giving myself, and then you guys know me as the people pleaser, right?
mhm,
Coach. And so that's where
yeah,
all that's really stemmed from, because I gave myself so much to an organization that I thought they had my back, and they didn't. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, they didn't. It was like, yeah, you've been with us for 4 years. You gave us all, so you don't have anything else to give. So we're not gonna really fight for you, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
No,
again,
that's
that's
all.
like that's going back to not me having boundaries, being a
Yeah.
yes man all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I made it a point at that stage of my life to say, this is what's going on. I want you to be aware because I don't want you to go through the same exact thing that I went through. The same exact thing that I'm going through now that my parents probably have gone through at their, at a younger age, but they never told me any of that. They never
Yeah.
prepared me in life, and so this is why I feel it's so vital for the younger generation to just get a piece of information and just really take notice and have the tools, to be ready from the time they're in junior high school because school in general is already hard enough, what's going on in the world. But at
Sure.
least, as parents, mother, father, together, independent, grandparents, whatever the household dynamic, as long as the children have a good understanding of what to expect in the world and not just like, oh, there's Barbies and rainbows out there,
Yeah.
which is not.
Yeah. No, not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. Yeah. No,
You
I
know,
think. Go ahead. Go ahead, Wayne.
you know, when we talk about fatherhood, I think back then with our parents, it wasn't really the message wasn't really preached like being vulnerable. And so, I had an awesome dad, but when it came to being vulnerable, like I can count on both hands how many times my dad hugged me. You know what I mean? But he loved me. You know what I mean? I can count on two hands how many times I've seen him cry. And so society pushes the message like a man has to be tough all the time. And so we build up those walls like generationally because it's not being the message not being given like it's okay to cry. It wasn't until my faith in Jesus where I started feeling okay to, to break down and have vulnerable moments. And then in that, I'm like, okay, it's okay to show my weak moments to my kids. It's okay to show them I made mistakes too. It's
Yeah.
okay to tell them I'm sorry. And so, especially with men not having enough influence in society, especially with their kids, we have to make our voices louder, when it comes to um, parenting your kids, because a lot of kids not seeing their dads being vulnerable or not hugging them, not kissing them on the forehead, telling me, well, man, daddy made a mistake. I'm just learning how to tell my kids I made a mistake, a few years
Yeah.
ago. I'm just
Yeah.
learning to be vulnerable, you know. But it was through my faith that I was able to be broken to cry in front of them. So now I can cry when we're watching the movie together. And they be like, oh, that's daddy. But they don't look at daddy as weak. Although
Yeah.
generationally, as men, we see that as weak. Our kids understand that it's an expression of how you're feeling in the moment. And so I think as fathers, we have to be more intentional about speaking that message, POP, to our brothers, to our
Yeah.
friends that are men, like, bro, it's okay to cry. I'm intentional about telling my bros, I love you, bro. Even though they
Mm-hmm.
might say you too, I'm going to tell you again, I love you, bro. And
Yeah.
so with this generation now, if we plant those seeds, especially with you, POP, and your sons, that message will transfer to their friends. To my
Absolutely.
daughters, they'll be able to tell their guy friends or their boyfriends or their husband when they see him break down, it's okay, baby, because I seen my daddy break down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or their best friend, that's a guy. It's okay because I seen my daddy break down. So we got to be intentional about pushing that message.
Oh yeah. No, that's major. And I mean, I love what both of you all are saying. I think that for me, I mean, as far as my childhood was concerned, I think I had a my childhood was dope actually. To be honest, like my mother and my father weren't together; they weren't married. And I came around when they was kind of young, early 20s. And I know that my grandfather passed away when my father was very very young, so he didn't have a father figure. So he was interesting about the relationship that I have with my father is that, and what really shaped me was my father was literally learning how to become a man while he was trying to teach me how to become a man. So I literally watched him grow. I literally watched him go through challenges. I mean, because I have a brother and I have a sister by two other ladies. You know what I'm saying? So I have half brothers and sisters. And I saw that struggle. I saw him having to juggle personalities of different women to try to appease everyone in the situation. And I saw the stress that put on him as a young man. You know what I'm saying? So looking at the decisions that he made. And I remember when I was like, I might have been like 11 or 12. And I said to myself, like watching him, like seeing a situation happen with him. And I was like, yo, mind you, my mother and my father weren't married, so I didn't have it. I didn't, marriage wasn't on my mind because I didn't have an example of it. But I was like, yo, I'm having all my kids with one woman because I didn't want to go through that same struggle. I didn't want, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to have
Right.
to deal with that headache. You know what I'm saying? And I just remembered, I remember that in my head. But one thing that I appreciated about my father is my mother's phenomenal too. But like particularly since we're talking about fatherhood, what I appreciate about my father, and I told him he didn't give up. You know what I'm saying? Like even though he didn't know, even though he didn't quite understand, even though he didn't have an example of men, what he did, he sought out mentors to help him become a man. So then this way he would have something to give to me. You
Good.
know what I'm saying? And so even though he didn't know, so to speak, and he didn't use what he didn't know as an excuse to not know and to not do. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, that accountability piece was something that was really big for me in my upbringing. And my father and I come from a very loving family. So my father, I mean, we hugged. I mean, still to this day, when I talk to my father, "Yeah, hey, I love you, man." When we see each other, we hug each other, kiss each other on the cheek, like it's that type of love. And I was blessed to have men in my life that weren't so hard. They allowed themselves to be vulnerable, and I think it's because they were still trying to kind of learn themselves, right? And they opened themselves, and they were open enough to understand, to know what they didn't know, and seek out the information. So for me, how that translated to me with my with in fatherhood, particularly with my two boys and even with my daughter, I try to give them the same grace, understanding that me too, I'm still growing as well. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always telling them, hey, daddy's human too. But one thing that I really, really, really pressed with them and trying to get them to understand is, one, their choices. They have choices, right? And trying to help them understand the fact that they have a choice, and that I don't want them to become excuse makers as, oh, well, he so and so did this, so that's why I did that. No, 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 no. I tell them all the time, no, no, no. That's not an excuse. Even if so and so did whatever they did, you still have a choice to do something else. And that's one that I'm constantly pushing, is choice, and also accountability, because I feel that what's happening is, particularly in our community, accountability is something that we learn later on in life. You know what I'm saying? So we've made a lot of mess, you know what I'm saying? And either when we get a little older, we might be like, Dad, you know what? Now now it's almost kind of the consequences of my decisions that I've made earlier, that I didn't really hold myself accountable for. And when someone tried to, or if somebody tried to, I wasn't willing to own it.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I'm trying to make sure that my kids understand, particularly my boys, is this accountability piece. And I tell them every time, every decision that you make has a consequence. It's either going to have a negative consequence, or it's going to have a positive one, right? And you have the power to be able to choose which outcomes you want to have in your life.
For
So my
sure.
my old my oldest is 11, my youngest is 9, and I've been pressing that forever. And I've also been pressing to them the reality of life, that, look, bro, everybody not gonna like you. you can move heaven and earth. Ain't nobody, everybody's not gonna like you for whatever
Yeah.
reason. You know what I'm saying? You can do everything right, but there's going to be people for whatever reason that's just not going to like you. So what you have to realize is that that can't change who you are. You got to continue to be who you are, and then let them deal with whatever the issue is that they're dealing with. But as
Well,
long as you're treating people right and kind and loving, right? As long as you're being understanding of others and you're doing your best. And my wife's father gave me this piece of advice. I'm gonna shut my mouth. He said to me, he said that your best is always good enough. Your best is always good enough, and that's what I've passed on to my children. So with the accountability, with the choices, I always let them know that their best is good enough.
whew, I had to take notes. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
One thing you said that I've experienced. So, like for me, my parents divorced when I was 9,
Okay.
and um, so like after that, like he was kind of in my life. Um, but then as I got older, it's living in the same borough. I live in New York, so I live in the same borough, but never really coming. So all of that, what you said, accountability and the experience of childhood abandonment, all of those little things that a parent, whether it's mother or father, they don't really think about that, right? And how it would affect the child growing up and how they become codependent on other people and how that also translates into making poor choices,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And so like and another thing you touched on, how you said a lot of people right now they're realizing, oh shoot, maybe I should have handled that way back when I should have handled it, and now I'm having these regrets. And so
yeah,
that's what I'm experiencing, and I have to work on myself in order to somehow, not somehow, but to heal myself in order to have that conversation with him, with my father,
yeah,
because that's like, healing. People say, oh, though whatever it is, you go through, you meditate, you're healed, and no, it's a whole process. It's
yeah,
everyone who you had grudges against, who may have grudges against you, that you may felt envious or jealous, or you just didn't get along, or who treated you wrong, whoever it is. And it could be family, friends, co-workers, bosses, your next door neighbor,
yeah, yeah.
the
All the
dog down
above.
the road, whoever it
Yeah,
is, it's you always have to mend those relationships, each and every relationship, in order for you to move on and for you to translate into a higher power, a better version of yourself.
sure.
If we don't do that, we say, oh, my life is great, but then you have these skeletons in the closet and you're wondering why you may keep making those same mistakes over
Yeah,
and over, and some people don't are not aware of that because those rooted childhood issues that they just refuse to talk about,
yeah,
especially when um again, when it comes to abandonment, whether it's through the parent not choose not to be there, whether it's through a loss of a loved one, through death, whether it could be so many different ways people experience abandonment. But I just love that part, that accountability, and you teaching your
yeah,
sons and your daughter that aspect, that portion, because people these days, 30, 40 years old and 50s, I see that they
yeah,
just not still not accountable. They're
yeah.
like, it wasn't me. you know, on a
That's
shite,
right.
it wasn't
Yeah,
me. I don't know who did that. It's like, it's you
it's
it's
clearly
not
you.
me. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, really? You know?
Yeah,
And they don't want to be vulnerable. They
yeah, and
refuse to show weakness. And it's not about weakness, it's owning up to your mistakes. I do it, you know, and people may see that as a mistake or as a weakness. I'm like, yes, I made a mistake. So I crunched a few numbers wrong. I did
yeah,
it. You're going to talk to the person, let them know what happened. Like, it took me a while to get there, but I'm okay of owning up to my mistakes because it shows that I'm human and I'm not perfect. While
Yeah,
people will fight tooth and nail to show that they're perfect. And that's one thing you don't want to show our kids, that it's like, go back to what Dwayne said earlier. It's okay to make mistakes.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
and
it's, Go
and
ahead.
that's that. I think that's and that's major because I mean, and it's something. And Wayne, we've spoken about it before. It's you know, a part of or a large portion of fatherhood I've found is leadership, and that is an undergirding that's an undergirding foundational principle of father being vulnerable enough to lead and understanding that there's a difference between being a leader and being a dictator, right? And there's a huge difference between the two, and learning how to be a leader, understanding that there are responsibilities that come along with leadership. And I tell people all the time, look, one of the things that fatherhood has done for me is
Yeah.
humble me a great deal because look, what this also has done is helped me to lock in and understand that I have to do things anyway. I can't afford to just be in my feelings all the time, or because look, you do things for my kids don't wake up and hey dad, thank you so much for paying the bills and making sure you go to work and make sure that we got a bed and make sure that there's heat in the house and food. They don't
Right.
do that. They wake up, they get dressed, they come downstairs. What's for breakfast? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that type of thing? Oh, when are we going to do this and when are we going to do that? Like, that's just kind of they're used to it, and by the grace of God, we've been able to give them a stable environment for them to not have to worry. But if I'm always in my feelings or I'm attached to results, or my ego gets in the way, and that voids or that overrides my leadership mind, then what ends up happening is, because fatherhood can be, and motherhood for that matter, can be a very thankless job, right? You begin to now do things based on results as opposed to you doing them because you're the leader and that's your responsibility, period. Right? And so being a great leader allows you to, one, you have to be vulnerable because you have to know the people that you lead, and that forces you in a good way to now develop that relationship with those in which you have to lead. And in this case, talking about our children, we have the responsibility to lead them, so we have to be vulnerable enough. We have to be a living example first and foremost of all the principles and all the things that we're trying to teach them, but also we have to be vulnerable enough, and we have to be transparent enough, but we have to be willing enough to listen to them as well. Be willing to listen to them. We have to be willing to hear their concerns. We have to be willing to assess their concerns, and also be willing to make the necessary adjustments to make sure that they feel as if they're being heard and that their needs are being met. Right. And so it's leadership piece is really big because as a leader, team wins, it's the team's win. But when you lose, it's your fault. Period. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so adopting that as a part of your parenting model, understanding that look, if my child is not reacting a certain way or acting in a certain way, I got to look at myself and say, okay, what am I showing them? What are the examples that I'm setting before them that they're picking up on, right? Because when parents say, "Oh, well, I don't know where they get it from," no, you do. You know what I'm saying? Like you know where they got it from, and even if it's not totally, it's also the environment. As a leader, I have to be intentional about the environment I even let my kids exist in, right? Because knowing them, I need to make sure that I'm putting them in an environment where they can be able to grow, where they can be children, where they can learn, and they can learn at their own pace, and not feel the pressure of having to acquiesce or have to be somebody that they are not, but putting them in the proper position for them to be able to develop properly, develop their own sense of security and their own personalities, and then be able to then uh, serve them to be served. And as we all know, we got multiple children, so we know that each child is completely different. All three of my children are completely different than one another. So understanding again with leadership that one size don't fit all. I gotta serve my oldest son in a certain way. I gotta serve my youngest son in a certain way. I gotta serve my daughter in a certain way because each one of them have different love languages. Each one of them have different types of ways that they relate. So certain things work with one that don't work for another. But we have to be as parents, particularly as fathers, we have to really be willing to allow leadership to be a part of who we are and acquire that if we don't think that we are, or we haven't even considered it. Leadership is something that we definitely have to study and make sure that we ingrain or adapt into who we are.
Pop, um, when I first started parenting, bro, I used to get whippings as a kid, bro.
Hmm.
I used to get
Me
that
too.
real talk. My
Yeah.
mom used to send me outside to pull the switch off, no cap, in the backyard, and I would take my time to get it. So I was like, okay, that's how I'm gonna spank my kids. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But from a mentality standpoint, I'm like, man, bro, one thing that always stuck out to me, bro, this just me. Everybody have their own opinions. Like, man, I don't want to hit my girls. I don't even want that program into their mind, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one. But culture teaches us we have to raise our kids like our parents raised us. And we can't do that in this world because life changes. So just like you said, bro, I had to learn both of my daughter's love languages. Bro, my oldest, for us to really start building our relationship, I had to tell her to write down how she felt, what was going on.
Mm.
That broke the mold. So now she's able to communicate. It's this boy at school that like me.
Yeah.
My youngest, we have to go do something fun for her to be open to me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But generationally, it teaches us that we train and develop our kids how our parents did us. That's what keeps us in the prison, bro. That's
Yeah.
what allows the cycle to continue and not allow us to push forward, to raise our kids according to their language. I can't treat both of my daughters the same way.
Nope.
The response would be different, or I end up hitting that brick wall. And so, bro, our parents, I know my parents from the country. So
Yeah.
they treat all their kids the same. Would they tell you, oh yeah, the principal can spank you? Nah, bro. The principal put their hands on my kids. I can't do that. And so the message is, man, every child is different. The personalities are different. You know what I mean? The way they communicate is different. We have to adapt to that, bro. We can't do it the way we have to adapt to them, bro, because then they'll grow up mentally messed up, bro, because we're pouring onto them what we want instead of communicating and training them, bro, what's good for them.
Absolutely, man. Now I think that's huge, Wayne. What you're saying, and it's like, for me, and I always often say, like, oftentimes, particularly the past generations, particularly in our culture, it's like the trauma that we went through generationally. Like, oftentimes, parents, grandparents, etc., like, they working on the framework that they knew. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's like, and each generation gets better. It's not necessarily a slight on that generation because they didn't know. You know what I'm saying? They were using what was modeled for them. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not necessarily that they were. I mean, and, maybe their tactics weren't necessarily the best in today's society, but then that's what they thought. That's what they thought worked. You know what I'm saying? So so as far as with us, it's our responsibility to say, okay, you know what? Was cool, and that's what I did. Like, okay, this was cool. That wasn't all right. So I'm not gonna do that, but I definitely do this because this was cool. Like, I now that I'm older, I understand that. So
I
this
like
so
that,
this
bro.
this works with my framework. This works with what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish my goals with the kids. This right here don't really need it. You know what I'm saying? It didn't really work. It wasn't really beneficial. It really didn't serve anything. Really serve a great purpose. So there's no need to carry that on generationally. So I think that's another thing we have to do, Tina, is we have to be willing to assess what worked and what didn't,
That's
right?
beautiful.
Because as opposed to just kind of throwing away what a generations before did. Don't throw it away because there was some method to their madness. I don't want to say madness, but there was a method to it in some way, shape, or form. So taking
Survival.
up, yeah, yeah, survival, and a lot of it was survival. A lot of it
Right.
was survival. So it's like so understanding the complexity of that time, and also ingrained too that look, particularly with men, you can't show weakness. You work 4 jobs and you die. You know what I'm saying? You come home, you eat, you go to sleep, you wake up, you work 4 jobs, and then eventually you die. You know what I'm saying? Like that was basically, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that was basically what it was. So as far what listening to my kids, like having a conversation with them, like trying to know who they are. Now I gotta work. Like I should, like you said, Wayne. Like I show you I love you. You got a roof over your head. Like if you've all ever seen Fences, you
Yeah.
guys ever seen Fences?
Yeah.
Denzel Washington's character. He's like, yo, tell you I love you, bro. Like you got a bed upstairs. You know what I'm saying? Like you got food in the refrigerator. Like why do I like in essence? Why do I got to tell you if I'm showing you? You know what I mean? But
Right.
that's the framework by which they grew up in. So I think so for us, it's imperative for us to say, okay, at least try to, and what I've tried to do is at least try to understand where they came from. There's some things you like, okay, that just don't make no sense. That shouldn't have happened. But there's certain things that you might be able to grab and say, okay, you know what? I get it at least, right? And I may not use it. It may not be a part of my formula or my toolkit or my plan, but I understand it. But this thing kind of works, so I can maybe adjust that to my now and kind of work that in because it benefited for me and it could possibly benefit for my kids as well.
Yeah. Tina, this is a beautiful conversation. Beautiful conversation.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You guys got me taking notes. Oh my guys, it is beautiful. Oh my gosh. You would have piggyback on that? Or
Um, what I say is, as Pop was talking, I'm thinking about, bro, since our kids looking at this saying, Dad, this doesn't work anymore. We got to raise our kids. Like,
Oh, listen, listen, bro. I'm gonna tell you. And it's interesting, that you say that, Wayne, because I told you my sons are 11 and 9, and my oldest son is getting to his preteens and teenagers, and he's starting to test his boundaries. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely starting to test his boundaries, and he's not meaning to be disrespectful. But I was like, yo, if I were you, bro, you know what I'm saying? In my time, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you wouldn't be standing up right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just wouldn't be. But it's those type of things where, again, having to factor in leadership, right? At the end of the day, I'm trying to mold him or train him to be someone who speaks his mind, right? But so instead of me saying, "Yo, bro, who you talking to?" Even though I do that sometimes. Sometimes I do that because I catch myself. But it's
right,
more so of okay, he has a point. So how do I help him to now communicate that point without coming off being disrespectful?
right,
You know what I'm saying? Without coming off as if he's, as if he's flipping off at the mouth. You know what I mean? And so one of the biggest things that I've been trying to teach my oldest son is his responsibility as a big brother and trying to pour in and plant that seed of leadership in him. And I ask him when he's dealing with his siblings, I ask him 3 questions. I say, bro, are you taking care of your siblings? Are you looking out for them? And are you encouraging them? I need you to ask yourself those 3 questions when you're dealing with them. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not, then that means that your approach is wrong. You need to trying to help him to process his even the way he deals with them through those 3 questions. You know what I'm saying? But planting that seed again, talking about breaking generational curses and planting and establishing new norms. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Because
right,
because I want him to be able to communicate. I want them to be able to speak their mind. I want them to be able to know and be effective communicators, right? Because that's going to help them universally. That's a transferable skill. If he knows how to communicate with his siblings, he's gonna know how to communicate in school. He's gonna know how to communicate, as he grows and develops and be able to build other relationships because he's mastered the ability to be able to communicate, right? And so I just think in what in everyone has said is so powerful. It's really just a powerful thing. It just really is.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, oh my gosh, between the two of you, I'm not sure where to start with this. But going back to what Dwayne said about love languages and how you talk to both your girls, like for me, I had to dial it back, again, going through what I was going through and mending. Again, you both talk about how our parents, well, mostly it was my grandmother from the Virgin Islands. She was the one who whipped me for no apparent reason in my head, right?
Yeah.
Look at it
Yeah.
wrong, the belt, it was no time to react,
Yeah.
but
Right.
the same thing, that mindset of we have to discipline our kids, right?
Yeah.
And my son got the grunt of that. My daughter not so much, but my son, he endured a lot of that for me. And I would say within like the last 3 to 4 years, I've been mending my relationship between the two of them,
Mm.
apologizing for
Yeah.
my behavior, my actions, why I was in that mindset, that the headspace, right? Of just being angry and stressed out, and again, following all up what my
Yeah.
predecessors did, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
going back to like you want what? You want love, you want this and that, as a male, but I can't, like for me, I that for me, that portion is like a mystery, like a blank, because I never
Yeah.
received that from my father.
Yep.
But even like for my mother, it was her love language was the same way. She was working probably like 60 to 70 hours a week as a registered nurse, and coming off of not coming off of, but dealing with divorce debt and raising a young child and all of these other things that she had going on, that me, I'm like, why don't you spend time with me? But
Yeah.
going back to fast forward to me, as an adult and my children, it's I was apologizing, communicating. So, like you said, Stephen, that you don't want them to be messed up in the head,
Yeah.
because you don't want them to grow up and saying, "Damn, all I got was this from her. I got this from him,
Yeah.
and nothing else."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and to point out to like as each child you have, you can have 50 children. They're all going to be different, no matter if it's with the same person or not.
Or
They're
not. That's
all
a
going to be
fact.
different with different personalities, and you have to learn each of them, and you have to love them in your own special way, and also not show competition. You know,
Yeah.
that's very key, because I see where the first child or maybe the last child may get special treatment, but you have to literally spend each and every time, or your time, with that child, with your children, in their own way, where they feel loved and secure, however that is. For like my daughter, she loves food, so she
Yeah.
loves food. She loves um just like the simple things. And then for my son, he loves to talk, and so we do
Yeah.
that a lot. We
Yeah.
The way at college, we meet once a week on Zoom, and we share
Nice.
our, what happens, during the week. And so that's like his way of, and it's just let him know that I'm here for them. And
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
and
big.
and it's changed, to the point where my daughter is just like telling me stuff that I probably should not know. It's like, okay, it went from a strictly mother relationship where you're not supposed to know anything, do it,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, so my friend said about you
Mhm.
know XYZ, and it's
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
oh, we're in that relationship now, going towards like
Yeah.
friendship, which is pretty cool, but at the same time, she does know that not
Your
to
mommy.
cross over,
Yeah.
to
Your mommy.
try to
Yep.
test. I try to test, like you said, your son is like trying to test his boundaries. So
Yeah.
it's like, and instead of being reactive, right? Because we've been reactive many times in our past, but being proactive in saying, okay, Why am I feeling like this? Why am I getting angry at my son or daughter? Let me dial it back. Let me communicate in a way that they can understand without me having to raise my voice,
Yeah.
without me having to get the belt or the switch or shoe, depending on what culture you're coming
Yes.
from.
Yeah. Facts.
you know,
Facts.
and it's a beautiful thing that, for us to talk about this, and for other parents who are watching this, or for even younger adults who are thinking about becoming parents, and
Yeah.
what their norm is in the house. Because I live again in New York, and there are some neighborhoods it's just like this poor little 3-year-old child is literally picking up the same nonsense that the adults are doing, and they think it's
Yep.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're
I think
so
it's
young, and I'm just like,
I
my
think
heart
it's
goes
cute.
out. And it's that
Yeah.
generational curse that just keeps happening, and why people are remaining in poverty and in this mindset. And it's like there's a better life out there, but no one is really, not saying no one. They are choosing not to. Choice, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that you wrote in your book, right? For your sons, that we'll, get to talk about in a few. But having that choice in our lives, like, what path do you want to go? You want to go the path that's going to give you abundance in life, or do you want to go down a path that you're just going to keep repeating and just live miserably
Yep.
Yeah.
and always want to be bailed out?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no, and the thing about it is that only two options. Like no, like there's no happy medium anywhere either. And that's it, and that's why it's so. Well, I just want to just mention, I mean, because you mentioned it, Tina, and also Wayne, you mentioned it. Um, that was one of the when I first became a father. I was well, actually, let me see, was my son born? Yeah, I think my oldest son was just born. And one of the elders in my church pulled me to the side, and I want to share something with you. Congratulations, congratulated me on being a father. And I need to tell you something that I never want you to forget. So I'm thinking he about to drop some super game on me, like, yo, let's go. I mean, he said never be afraid to admit when you're wrong.
Mm.
And I was like, well, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's the bombshell that you about to drop
Yeah.
on me. Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But particularly as men, we have a difficult time admitting when we're wrong.
Yeah.
We're a difficult time, and we build all types of walls to justify our inability to be able to admit when we're wrong. And in essence, and at first it was, it was kind of, of course, I was, thank you so much, appreciate it, you know what I mean? But as I kind of thought about it and I meditated on it, I was like, man, what he is doing is he is in essence freeing me to free them, right? And it's not just for my kids. That's for my wife too. Like, that's in my marital relationship as well. Being willing enough to admit when I'm wrong, right? And so that thing was so powerful. And every time I think back to it, like, a little bit more is kind of unpacked for me. But you all mentioned apologizing, and that's huge. And being able to admit when you're wrong, and just imagine what freedom that gives our kids, right? To
Yeah.
not try to have to overcompensate when they're wrong, to try to even, like they say, like my old girl says, being wrong and strong, instead of you like knowing you wrong and doubling down on it. But the freedom of saying, yo, having mindfulness enough to be like, you know what, no, I don't have to be enslaved or in prison by, let me just go ahead and admit the fact that I was wrong, and men, like you said, mend that relationship, and that allows me to be free, and the person who I wronged to be free, and then we could work towards getting it back together. We could work towards mending that relationship. So that's big. That's also something that's really really big.
Absolutely. Bro, Tina, we go back to choice, and I think about my dad and Pop. My dad, he worked. I thought he worked 24/7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing, one thing that I always think about with my dad, bro. He worked 24/7, but the time we spent together felt like he was with me 24/7. You know,
Yeah.
the baseball games, the practices, going to church together. That quality of time, he made a choice to make sure the time that he did have with me felt like he was with me all day.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that always stood out about my dad is like, bro, I remember him not being there, but I remember him being there because he was there when it mattered. You know, bro, I
Yeah.
remember I'd be having problems, having trouble with math, my homework. I'd call him. He'd be out there working. I hear him working. He'll say, just leave it out. I'll do it for you. Leave it out. I'll do it for you. Now, you know, he get home 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, y'all, and he'll be in there doing it. When I get up, come here, let me show you what I did. That meant the world to me. You know what I mean? I still remember those moments. And so he made a choice to be like, you know, I'm working hard, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
make sure I'm there when it counts.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
big,
our
man.
choice. Bro, he could have
Yeah.
said, man, I'm gonna keep working, working, working. Dwayne, he'll figure it out. But he was
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm gonna make sure I'm there when it matters the most. And that comes to making that decision. Like he had to make that decision. It's like, okay, I need to be on point here because
Yeah.
I'm lacking over here. Let me make sure I'm dialed in to the important things so he knows. So I never feel like my dad wasn't there, even though he wasn't. He was
Yeah.
there because he was there when it mattered the most.
Man, Wayne, that's big, bro. Because a lot of a lot of people would I'm not going to say a lot of people, but I can see where someone would say, well, since I missed so much anyway, I might as well just keep on doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Since I missed so much anyway, let me just keep on just, listen, he'll understand or she'll understand, you know what I
Right,
mean? And
right.
and and, and that's a dangerous assumption that they'll understand. That's a
Yeah,
dangerous assumption that they'll understand because the reality of it is it's not their responsibility to understand. They're children. You know what I mean? And because of that, I have to constantly remind myself that their thought process isn't not my thought process at almost 40 years old. They
mm,
don't. They don't. What it is they know what's immediately in front of them and what they see. They absorb what they see and they draw a conclusion based upon what is right there. They don't understand. They don't understand. They don't have the reasoning to be like, well, you know what, Dad really got to. Yeah, they don't understand that lights cost money. They don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? They don't understand that water costs money. You feel what I mean? Like they don't get any of that stuff. You know what I mean? They, to your point, it's Dad's not there. You know what I'm saying? Because he got to work, and that's where it stops.
mhm.
So the mere fact, man, that that's so big because there's somebody that's going to watch this and you want to, and they might feel as if they're slacking off over here, and what you're telling them is that, look, okay, that might be the case, but it's not too late for you to make a decision to now at least try to show up when it matters. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's really really big. Because I mean that's freeing to somebody that's going to hear that a father or mother for that matter that's working a whole lot. My dad had a bunch of side hustles. You know what I'm saying? Like and oftentimes I was with him while he was in it when he washed cars. That dude promoted parties. You know what I'm saying? That dude worked at a community center. Like he worked night job. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember I remember spending the night at his night job with him. You know what I'm saying? Because he worked at an all boys cottage. So so I mean it was like I was with him. You know what I mean? I was with him all the time. And again, like when he was learning how to become a man, he didn't do everything right. You know what I mean? But he didn't have any reference point either. You know what I'm saying? But I was with him all the time. You know what I'm saying? I was with him all the time. So it's again, man. One of the things, and the reason why I'm so big on choice is because our lives consist of the choices that we make. It's a sum total of the choices that we make. And we do more, we make more decisions than we do anything else. So if we can make decisions for everything else, as fathers, we can most definitely make decisions for our children. we can most definitely make it a point to be in their lives, but not just be in their lives, not be around them, but be with them. You know what I'm saying? And not just build, like I say all the time, not build something for them, but build something with them. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just a major key.
You know, I say this, and I'll be quiet, bro. You know, my value that one of my things that my dad taught me was, and I shared this on a morsel last Monday. My dad always said, "Do your best, be your best." Bro, when I lay my head down, bro, as a dad, I can say, man, I did my best, you know. Um, and that's what I would share with any father that's tapped in. It's like, just be your best.
That's
Because
it.
I tell you, you can have some dads out there that's at the crib, you know, but all they doing is on the computer talking with their boys at work.
Yep.
And I'm still a better dad than you. And I'm working all the time because I maximize on the time I have with them. And that's what I want to encourage, like the dads, man, maximize on being the best dad that you could be.
That's right.
Not according to the standards. Be the best dad that you could be. Hold yourself to that standard.
Yeah.
Because when you're the best dad for you, then your kid or your kids will see the benefit from it. You'll see it physically, you'll see it mentally, and you'll see it as they progress as teenagers, preteens, adults. You'll see it because you said, I'm gonna be the best. And my dad was the best he could be. I mean, I turned out all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I, I
Indeed.
turned out good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? From
Yeah.
the looks
Indeed.
of it. You know, I'm turned
Yeah.
out good. And so, although my dad, from an emotional standpoint, didn't show me like the emotional side, he showed me how to work hard. He showed me how to get to this paper. He showed me how to be the best person, do my best. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing now is I'm eating the meat of what he gave me, and I'm throwing away the bone. But the
That's right.
thing I can encourage you guys with today is just be your best. When you can be
Yeah.
your best, when you lay your head down at night, you be like, man, I did the best I could by my kids, and that's all that counts.
That's and that I love that, and I just want to say one thing on that, Tina, and just as far as my way of advice. And look, if you didn't have your father, or your father passed, it just wasn't a way, was, and you didn't have male figures to, but you wish you did. What I'm loving and I'm seeing often, and I'm kind of I'm kind of intermingled with a lot of them, or with some of them anyway. There's fatherhood communities now,
Yeah,
there's brothers. You
that's
got
good, bro.
Facebook groups, you got Instagram groups, of guys that are really, really, really YouTube belief in fatherhood. Like, you got guys that are out here that are really, really, really um uh holding the torch for fatherhood, and really, really, really getting behind it, and really being champions for it, and inviting everyone into their flaws, into their process, into their mindset. So even if you don't necessarily think that you know how to, get on IG, get on Facebook, and find a fatherhood community to tap into, because really, you really don't know that you don't know that you don't know. You know what I
Right,
mean? Until you're
right,
exposed to people who do know, and then they like, and then the light bulbs go off, like, oh wow, I never thought about that. And then that
right.
will help you to be able to become, or even reshape your standard of your best. So you work with what you have now, but understand that there's also resources out there for you to get even better.
Bro, I just Googled how to be a dad and it gives tips. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
start there. Start
yeah. That's a
there.
fact.
If you
That's a fact.
nervous or you bashful about asking a man, just type it in the internet, how to be a dad, and figure
There
out
you
what
go.
works for you. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
there you
For
go.
real.
One at a time, one step at a time, man. One step at a time.
My
You
God,
know?
that like to sum up what you guys just said collectively, it's the C word and the P word. Choice to be present.
Mm,
Mm,
Both your
yep,
fathers choose to be present in your lives.
yeah.
yep.
For mothers too, for those, mothers are watching. For, you know, yes, mothers get Mother's Day, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm rich. I have." That's a whole nother episode where I'm like, parent. It should be Parents' Day every single day. Regardless if you're
Hmm.
mother or father, or I'd say parental figures, because not everyone grows up, with their mother or father. Maybe like the
Yeah,
aunts, uncles, the grandparents,
grandparents.
foster
Yeah,
home, whatever that is, step parents. But the choice for the parental figures to be present in the child's life makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You, Dwayne, you said, your father is working, feel like he's working 24/7, but then when he spent that time with you, no matter what he had going on out, in his life, his mind was there.
Yeah.
Because it's a difference between, and then when I say present for those who are watching, the person could be physically there in your space with you, but
hmm,
their mind is somewhere else.
Yeah.
right.
You could be talking to them and they're like, huh, what, I'm sorry. It's, they're literally there, engulfed in what you are thinking, seeing, doing, breathing. They're doing all of that. They're like literally have your attention, and that's so important for a parent to do, especially when, oh my gosh, that's like, it should be, I can't even say where it begins or ends, but it's just throughout the child's life, even into
Yeah.
Right.
adulthood,
That's right.
and it's, when your child gets to those stages where they're trying to figure themselves out, the tween years, and they are, wrestling with what you're telling them, what their friends telling them, if they have access to internet and the movies that are out now, and that before used to be PG, or sorry, used to be rated R and now PG. You're like, wait, what's going on? Like all of that information they're
Yeah.
taking in, and in that confusion of growing, at least they know that when you are with them and they have these conversations, and they know that they can count on you because you're
Yeah.
present.
No, and Tina, you hit it right on the head, and particularly now, Wayne and other brother of ours, we were talking. I think it was last week Sunday. Particularly now, as this world is evolving into all types of, you got the metaverse, you got this, and you got that, you got all these other things that are going on, and it's vitally important for us as parents to make sure that our children have the fundamentals down, right? They have to they have to have the fundamentals. They have to, that the thinking for yourself, being able to stand on your own, to doing your own research, making sure that you are working on the character, that character piece, being a
Yeah.
good person, being decent, being kind, being loving, right, being understanding is very important. And even with my sons, shaking somebody's hand and looking them in the eye, all of these things, even in a virtual world, I'm still teaching them the fundamentals of being a good human, right? And once they have those fundamentals, those can transfer over into whatever verse whatever verse they find themselves in. But it's very important that we do not skip, or we do not neglect to instill those core values, so then this way they can still develop into good humans, that whatever it is that they lend themselves to, whatever they find it in technologically or whatever have you, they can still be them, even there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't get bogged down or whisked away by these things, because they were never grounded to anything. And I think that that's also something that I'm really passionate about myself, because I work with teenagers often, and I'm like, man, like, you don't have no clue, bro. You know what I mean? Like you have no clue on real life. You know what I mean? And what I'm saying is, the the being able to think through processes. You got to be able to think through things. And a
Right.
lot of the kids that I come across, not the majority of the kids that I come, they can't pinpoint A to B. So if I ask them a simple question, I say, "What was on why did you do that? What exactly was you thinking about when you did that?" they
Right.
really can't give me an explanation as to why. It was more so impulsive, right? And
Mhm.
so that because there is a fundamental flaw in their foundation, right? And so it's easier to at 8 and at 9 when they're younger to set that foundation. So then this way you're just reinforcing it as they get older,
Mhm.
as opposed to now trying to teach it to a to a kid that's in their teenage years already and been influenced by all types of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a key to us being able to make sure that we are raising children that are whole, even in this ever evolving and changing world. Because I'm a firm believer in the application may change, but the principles stay the same.
That's yeah. That brings me to the book that you written for your sons.
Yes.
Um, I know in your introduction that you did say you work with young men. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Young
Yep.
adults.
Young adult. Yep.
Yes, and I think that's like fabulous because that's something that I'm aspiring to do. Work with young adults to get them at a young age to change their mindset, whatever is going on. Because from my background, I, lived in, I guess, they say a sheltered life, sheltered suburban kind of life. But I also have friends who lived in, low income areas. So I was in and out in both, right? So,
Yeah.
and, going to the projects and seeing like that lifestyle. But it all stems from, like you said, you tap into them when they're like 8 years, 7, 8 years old, because they're, not just their mother and father or other parental figures, it's their cousins
Yep.
and the people that's in that community, in their environment,
Yep.
having such influence on them.
Yeah.
So they think it's cute because someone else is doing it, but in reality, when they get older, it may not be acceptable. They have this again mindset that it's okay to, work, not to strive for more, and it's just they don't have a purpose. They
Yeah.
don't have a purpose in life, and a lot of them struggle with that. And so I applaud you for, working with young adults. And, I commend both of y'all for just being examples for your children. But I definitely want to read from your book
Yeah.
that I highlighted. You have a chapter in here called Fail Forward, and
Hmm.
this is to your sons. And the first paragraph is failure is only permanent if you are committed to making it so. Success can blind you to things to which failure will bring your attention. The bottom line is that you have a choice. There goes the C word again. People who are successful fail forward, meaning they fail as they are pressing forward towards their dreams. They use their failure as fuel to power their dreams. You
Yeah.
can learn valuable lessons from failure. And I can keep going on and on and on. Guys, go get the book. This is like really
Yeah.
wonderful. But I just felt that was so powerful that it's okay. When we talked about earlier, both of you talked about earlier about it's okay to fail. It's okay to show that you're vulnerable, that you're human. And so I found that part liberating because again, you are leaving a blueprint. You left them like literally a Bible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. 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 And you know what? It's yes. Well, first of falling forward, Jay Z has a line. He says, "I will not lose, for even in defeat, there's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens up for me." And that is something that I live by, and I said I got to pass it on to my children because again, it's a choice. Failure can only be your end all, or it can only be something that you constantly are enslaved to if you choose to. If you choose to, if you give failure the power, then it's always going to have the power. So the thing about it is that if you look at failure, or you look at it from the perspective of that even in defeat there's a valuable lesson learned, so it evens it up, then you now have the power to try. You have the power, you have the power to try, and not only the power to try, but to keep trying, to look at this thing from as many different angles and as many different perspectives as you can, and try it from all different angles. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because you tried it, and you tried it this way, you tried it that way, you come underneath it, you came on top of it, you try to get around it, and it just didn't work. But at the end of the day, I want them to understand the power of us to understand the power of our choices. Again, that is a gift that we have. That is the most powerful thing. We will do more, make more decisions than anything else in our life. I tell my young boys all the time. Look, listen. That you make choices. You you made a choice to, once you woke up, get out of bed, to brush your teeth. You made a choice to get dressed. You made a choice to walk out your door and go to school. You made a choice. You know what I'm saying? These are all a series of choices. So if we understand, if I could get into them and plant that seed in them early, how powerful their choices are, then that frees them up, because they're not pigeonholed to anything else. It's, you know what, I choose whether or not this thing is going to stop me, or I choose whether or not this thing is going to fuel me. I have the choice to look at it, help from whatever perspective that I want. So that's why I thought it was so very powerful to give them the freedom, and to give them the power to look at failure as something that can fuel them on the path to their dreams.
Rain, you want to say something on that?
Man, y'all go get my dog book, man. So he can keep dropping them gems. Y'all go get his book.
Exactly.
It's all there. Go get his book.
I'll be in the
That's
description.
right.
I'll put it in the description box. But oh my gosh, you have a choice. We all have a
Yeah,
choice.
we all have a choice.
No matter what age, you have a choice. It's like
Yep.
going back to the infamous movie, The Matrix, right? The blue pill or the red pill. What is your
Yep.
choice?
Well, what is your choice?
You know,
What is your choice? What is your choice? And that right, and I mean, and that's a great example. And again, think about once you realize, once you properly uh frame failure, once you properly frame it, think about how think, most people, failure is the boogeyman. Failure is the boogeyman. Failure is, people are deathly afraid to fail. So much so that it paralyzes them from doing anything else, including trying. So think about, if you have a healthy perspective on what failure is, how powerful you are now, because you defeated the bully. You punched the bully in the face. The bully doesn't have that control over you anymore. So that's really what, not only am I trying to not only trying to make sure that I'm implanting in them early, but like you said, that's for us.
Mhm.
Every single day, me and Wayne, we were talking about limiting beliefs last week, and how all of these things it stacks one on top of each other, because of your fear of something, your fear of failure. You now box yourself into what you can do, based on looking through the lenses of you not wanting to fail. You know what I'm saying? And you thinking that somehow, some way, you know what I mean, you going to die because you fit. No,
Yeah.
that's not what it is. You failing a byproduct of you trying, a byproduct of you stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something that you never tried before. Les Brown, I was listening to a speech by Les Brown, and he said,
Love him.
anything, that's my guy. He said that anything worth being good at is worth being bad at.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Anything is worth being bad at. So you're going to be you are there is so many in our life journey. It is a series of us becoming experts and becoming rookies. We're always going to be a rookie at every stage of our
Yeah.
lives. when you're transitioning into something brand new, when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, when you feel called to something greater, you're going in cold.
Oh yeah.
Granted, some of your the skills that you've acquired along the way might better prepare you for that, but you're a
Mhm.
rookie all over again. You're a rookie all over again. You're a rookie all over again. So your gauge or your our ability to be able to succeed is our attitude towards our being rookies.
Yeah.
If you look at that properly, then we're going to continue to be lifelong learners, and as we learn, we grow, right? And if and as in the beautiful words of our sister Lauren Hill, she said, "Whatever don't grow is dead." You know,
Yes.
Yeah. You
flat
know,
out.
bro, I'm gonna be honest, like I didn't know what failure was. Like that was not like in a sense in my vocabulary. I tell you why is because my mom taught me how to make a bed, but when I didn't make it right, she told me to come back and she showed me how.
Mm.
My dad taught me how to cut the grass. When I messed up the grass, he brought me back and showed me how. And
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
so, as parents, if we go back to fatherhood, it's our job to develop and put our kids in situations where they make a mistake or they get it wrong, but we come back and show them how to do it. Like
That's right.
that's our job is to put them in situations where they fail and talk to them about it and not allow society to show them what failure. Because in the thought process is society makes failure a bad thing. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get fearful. We'll have anxiety. But my mom, me making the bed wrong, I was never fearful of making the bed because if I got it wrong, my mom was going to come and coach and develop me on how to get it right. I
Yeah.
was never fearful if I cut the grass wrong. Oh, my dad gonna be so upset with me. I wasn't
Yeah.
like that because he would come out, let me show you how to do it right. So failure was never a thought process. It was just like, okay, I got it wrong. Let me figure out another way to come back and do it
Yeah.
right. As fathers, it's our job to have workshops in our own creative way. You
Yeah.
know,
So.
we, me and my daughters, we go to the park and they'll race. My oldest used to beat my youngest, but guess who winning now? My youngest. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? My oldest used to be more flexible than my youngest. Guess who more flexible now? And so it's putting practices in place. And fortunately, guys, I'm not gonna say unfortunately. Fortunately, it's our job to do that, not the teachers. It's our
Yeah.
job to put
Absolutely.
our kids in situations. Man, bro, I take my daughters to the hood all the time, and I allow them to go to the register and pay for something to have that communication with
I do that
somebody
too.
that's not from the best part of the greatest part of town. We
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
to the hood and they make them transactions. I'm like, get your receipt,
Yep.
count your change, look
Mm.
at that person. I'm putting them in position so
Yeah.
they can understand, like, okay, if they don't get the right change back, they can think about it like, man, I gotta count my money next time. I
Yep.
gotta get a receipt
Exactly.
next time. You see what I'm
Yep.
saying? So it's our job as men is to put our kids in them situations. Do workshops, do your own workshops, ways to develop them to show them, man, failure ain't bad. You know what I mean? I
It's a part of
messed up,
life.
but I'm
Yep.
gonna come back and try it again.
Yeah, that's big, Wayne. No, that's absolutely, and I do the same thing with my kids. If you gotta pay for it, you gotta count your money. If you get short, that's on you, brother. It's your money. You know what I'm saying? They have to putting them in those real life scenarios because they're gonna be in those real life scenarios. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a fine line where we got to be careful about overly sheltering the kids
Mm.
because
Yes.
we have to be very, very careful because what we're doing is we're putting out a very fragile individual into a dog eat dog world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why I was saying earlier, just helping my kids to understand, like, no, not everybody gonna like you. Not everybody's gonna be a friend, right? Not
Mhm.
everybody. So don't expect everyone to like you or to be in your friend. You do you as far as you be nice to them. If they choose not to be nice to you, that's on them. But you don't change your character because of that. And again, giving them the foundation and those fundamentals, because what we have to do is we have to prepare them for life. That's our job. Our job is to prepare them for life. Period. You know what I'm saying? For them to be able to stand on their own too, for them to be able to think on their own, be able to think through processes. Of course, as you said earlier, Tina, us having a relationship as such where they feel comfortable coming to us when they can't figure something out and they just need some guidance and direction. But we get to it. That is the evolution of our parenthood, where we get to the point where we're just advisors. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like they doing their thing. We've equipped them with what they need to get out there and do their thing, and now we just advising them
Mhm.
along the way. That's it. You know what I'm saying? It should not be a type of thing, in my opinion, where my mother used to always say, you can't say I didn't tell you. You can't say I didn't tell you. That was her biggest thing. You can't say that I didn't tell you. Right. So, she would say, don't do X, Y, and Z. This is why you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. She said, now that you know, you will make an informed choices. There it is. That's probably why choice is so big for me.
Mhm.
Because she would always say, I give you all this information. Now, if you have a choice and you will be making whatever choice you make is going to be an informed decision because I gave you the information that you need. So
Yeah.
whatever the consequences are to that decision that you make, that's on you because you had the information. So that ultimately we want to be able to mold them so that in this way when they get out there, they're not shell shocked. You know what I'm saying? They want to have been somewhat familiar. And like you said, Wayne, that's perfect. Having simulations of where you're in control of the environment, where you can still give them enough leeway for them to be able to figure it out on their own, but they know that daddy's close by. You know what I'm saying? So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh my gosh. Two things I want to touch on before uh we come to a close. But Dwayne, you said count your money. Like me, if well, my kids know me like when they, we go to we call it bodegas over here. And
Hmm.
I have pet peeves about a lot of things, but one pet peeve I have when I go to this kind of this the corner store, the supermarket, in certain neighborhoods. If something costs 99 cents, you give them $1, you make sure you get that penny back. Because a lot of times, no, I'm serious, a lot of times those store owners, because of your skin color, they are like, oh, they don't need that penny. Like, no, that's money. And I emphasize, how many people who do not collect that penny and how much
Mhm.
money they make off of you. If they have like 100 people come to that store every day, 200 people, whatever that count is,
Yeah.
they're
Wow.
literally saying that you
That's
don't
good.
know how to do math because that's like the stereotype, right?
Hmm.
Certain cultures are better in math, which is not true. It's
Not at
just
all.
some teachers don't know how to teach, but that's a whole other story. Podcast on that one. um, but it's the way we learn. But counting your money, right? And two, Stephen, when you touched on that, what this clicked in my head was self-love,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
that's another thing that uh, we also have to teach our children.
Absolutely.
You know, not not everyone's gonna like you, and it's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you love yourself and you validate yourself and you're confident within yourself, and if they don't like you, it's fine. I love myself. I'll spend time with myself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know,
Yo,
That's a fact.
quick plug before we close out. We had a session on self love too at the Lunch and Munch. So
We
y'all need
sure
to hop
did.
on over there
Go
after
check that
y'all
out.
watch this. Check out our episode we did on self love.
Yeah.
definitely I
Absolutely.
have that in the description box. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do have three questions to ask each of you. Um, so whoever wants to go first. So, what is the best piece of advice you received, you've read, or you've heard?
So for me, it was that. Well, actually, I got a few. So I mentioned one before. The not, as the gentleman shared with me, the elder shared with me, not being afraid to admit when I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Another one that my father, two things that my, no, three things. So my father used to always tell me, do your own research.
Mhm.
He said, even if I tell you something, I could be wrong. So make sure that you do your own research. Um, and two, from my father-in-law. My father-in-law told me, one, he said, young man, you have to move from motivation to inspiration. You have to move from
Mm.
motivation to inspiration. And he told me that every flower blooms in its own time.
Oh, I love that one.
Mm.
All right, my
Yeah,
turn.
yeah.
Yes, your turn.
So I got to go back to my dad. My dad is not a man of many words. But one thing, the best piece of advice I've gotten from him is work hard. That's it.
Mhm.
And everything he did, if it was preaching, if it was cutting the grass, if it was working, just work hard.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Mm.
That's good. That's good.
And then the last question I ask all my guests, what are three pieces of advice you would give your 16-year-old self?
All right, I'll go first. I tell myself it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Mm. I would say the girls will be there, so fall back. Um, do 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 do, do more studying. It don't pay to be the cool. It don't pay to be the cool cat.
Yeah.
It don't pay to be the cool cat, man. Leave them girls alone. They'll be there and do some more reading. Do some more studying. That's mine.
No doubt.
Oh my gosh. Uh, I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on here and having this conversation that's just so needed, on fatherhood and your experiences and what you're doing with your children, your boys and your girls. And let our listeners, our viewers, let them know where they can find you, which platforms, how they can tap in, and especially to the Lunch and Munch, which we collaborated, but let them know
Absolutely.
what day, what time, what things you got going on that's coming up, and I'll have all that in the description box.
That that. Well, Wayne, go ahead, Wayne.
Uh, it's all about the lunch and munch. One purpose mind is that's by itself. Right now, it's all about the lunch and munch. The lunch and munch
Exactly.
meet up every Tuesday, 12:30. The most dangerous virtual lunchroom on the planet. I need y'all to pull up, man. We got a lot of great things going on, and I promise you, you want to be a part. You don't want to miss it. We building this thing from the ground up, and what a lot of people do is they don't show you the process. Man, we actually showing you the process because we living it while we walking through it with y'all. That's all I got, bro.
Mm.
And I concur.
That's
That's it. He said it.
yes, definitely tap into them because the information that they share every single week, the morsels that they have, and the guests. It's a variety. You can never be bored. Pull up. Take that. Was it half hour?
Yeah,
That
that's it.
half
Half
hour
hour.
lunch break. Tap
That's it.
in,
Yep.
and you'll be fed. More than anything. You'll be full by the time you watch and you intake and digest everything that they have to offer. And I can say that because I was on there.
Well,
So
yo, hey, and Tina, you was on with us for what, 4 weeks? Yeah, we had you
yeah, a
for a whole
month.
month.
Yeah, a
We on
whole
for a
month.
whole month. So
I'm
listen, yo,
alumni.
you alumni. So listen, if nothing else, pull up to the meetup so you can watch all four of Tina's episodes because she killed.
No doubt.
She killed it. So pull up
Thank
on us.
you.
You won't be disappointed. You won't
Bro,
be
look,
disappointed. I promise.
I was a fan of Tina's after that first episode. I said, bro, I hit you up. I said, bro, that's not enough. That's not. I said, we might have to have her for the
That's a
whole
fact.
fight. You remember that?
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. Yep.
Look,
Listen, he
after
ain't
this
lying.
conversation here, I might have look, we're gonna have to work out some kind of, I don't know, unbalanced pedestal podcast, lunch and munch, something, I don't know, but this
We gonna
conversation, you
we gonna
guys
figure it
open
out.
up so much, from my perspective of, from a female who didn't grow up with a father. I did have like male influencers, but from seeing from your perspective and to change that narrative in our community where so many people are not even getting that. It's just it's something that it needs to be shown. It needs to be you talk about the communities that other fathers are creating and tapping into that you just open up their eyes like, oh, I can do that. I can go to these communities online, Google it,
Yeah,
all of
straight
these
up.
things, these resources that people just don't really, the simplest things that they don't really realize that it's that easy. And they're
Yeah,
not alone. They don't have to do it alone.
Right.
They don't have to
that's what we
struggle.
here for. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Man, I tell you, thank you again for coming
Thank
on here.
you.
We definitely have to do this again in the future, the
I'm with
near
it.
the near future.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm with
Say
it.
no more.
Say no
Definitely.
more.
And go and get this book here. I'll put it in the description box if you guys. Here you go.
Appreciate it. Appreciate that.
Definitely, definitely. It's a blueprint for, your sons. And you're not alone. If your father listens to this, whether you're married, you're single, whatever it is, divorce, you're not alone in this. There's a community of men out there. Tap into Stephen and Dwayne at the Lunch and Munch. Hit them up, see what they're doing because they know it. They are in it. They're living it every day and they can give you the resources. So thank you again, guys, so much for
Thank you.
tapping in. And thank you everyone for listening to the Unbalanced Pedestal podcast. Okay, bye guys.
See you
No.
later. Thank you.